Welcome back to the channel. Throughout history, great leaders have risen to the challenges of their time. But what makes a leader truly stand out? For many, it was the quiet strength of Stoic philosophy. Today, we'll uncover how these leaders used Stoicism to navigate the toughest moments of their lives, and how you can apply the same principles to your own journey. History is filled with examples of leaders who shaped the world not only through their actions, but through their thoughts and beliefs. At the core of many of their philosophies lies Stoicism, a mindset that allowed them to stay calm under pressure, make difficult decisions, and maintain their character in the face of adversity. Leaders often face seemingly insurmountable challenges. In times of war, revolution, or social upheaval, the decisions they make define not just their legacy but the future of entire nations. But what allows these leaders to not just survive, but thrive in such adversity? For Marcus Aurelius, it was the relentless pressures of war and plague, an empire in crisis, yet he never faltered. Washington, on the other hand, led a ragtag army against the might of the British Empire, with little resources and even less support. Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, faced not just personal suffering, but the slow and painful fight for justice in a deeply divided nation. But what unites their stories? It is the philosophy they lived by, a philosophy that embraced the challenge rather than ran from it. The Stoics believed that adversity was not a hindrance, but an opportunity. Every obstacle, no matter how daunting, was a chance to grow stronger. Marcus Aurelius, often called the philosopher king, faced threats both external and internal. The Roman Empire was besieged by plagues, revolts, and war. Yet, amid all of this, Marcus wrote his famous Meditations, a deeply personal reflection on Stoic philosophy. In it, he reminds us, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the core of the Stoic mindset. Every challenge is an opportunity for growth. For Marcus, the difficulties he faced were not obstacles, but the very path to wisdom and strength. His calm in the storm was not a result of blind optimism, but the deep acceptance of reality as it is. Fast forward to the 18th century, and we see Stoic principles alive in one of the most important figures of the American Revolution, George Washington. Washington's life was filled with uncertainty. From the freezing winter at Valley Forge to the overwhelming power of the British military, his resilience was continuously tested. Yet he remained steadfast. Washington knew that control over external circumstances was limited. His focus was inward, on maintaining discipline, character, and vision for the greater good. His ability to remain calm and collected inspired his soldiers, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Nelson Mandela's story, perhaps more than any other, embodies Stoic endurance. 27 years of imprisonment is enough to break anyone's spirit. But Mandela did not let his circumstances dictate his mindset. Like the Stoics, he understood that while he could not control his physical freedom, he could control his mental and emotional state. He famously said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." This echoes the Stoic teaching that courage is not the absence of hardship, but the strength to endure it. Whether it's leading an empire, founding a new nation, or dismantling an unjust system, all these leaders faced immense pressure and difficulty. The common thread through their stories? The Stoic belief that adversity is not an enemy, but a teacher. In today's world, we may not be emperors, generals, or revolutionaries, but the challenges we face are just as real. And just like the great leaders of history, we too can apply Stoic principles to embrace hardship and emerge stronger. Let's begin with Marcus Aurelius, a man who inherited not just the throne of one of the greatest empires, but also its burdens. As the Roman emperor, His reign was marked by military conflict, betrayal, and a deadly plague that decimated the population. The strain of ruling a vast empire in turmoil was immense. Imagine the weight of responsibility that must have crushed him daily. Yet Marcus didn't falter. Instead, he turned inward, writing his thoughts and reflections in what would later become Meditations. The plague was spreading uncontrollably, killing soldiers and civilians alike. The empire's enemies sensed weakness and attacked from all sides. Yet Marcus taught himself and his empire to remain steady, calm, and resilient. His philosophy was clear. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In this moment of crisis, Marcus had to embrace uncertainty and focus on the only thing he could control, his own thoughts and actions. The philosophy of Stoicism allowed him to lead without losing his moral compass, despite the chaos surrounding him. Stoicism teaches that obstacles are not meant to be avoided, but to be faced head-on. Marcus Aurelius didn't wish away the plagues or rebellions. Instead, he accepted their existence and used the situation to reinforce his own moral fortitude. His response wasn't just philosophical. He actively prepared the empire for further challenges. To him, adversity was part of the natural order. The difficulties didn't matter as much as how one responded to them. Imagine if Marcus had focused on blaming others, wishing things were different, or falling into despair. Instead, his Stoic attitude allowed him to see adversity as inevitable, to turn his attention to what was within his power, and to lead from a place of internal strength. Next, we turn to George Washington. He wasn't a Roman emperor, but his challenges were no less daunting. As the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolution, Washington faced a seemingly unbeatable foe in the British Empire. His army was often outnumbered, ill-equipped, and on the verge of collapse. They endured bitter winters, food shortages, and defeat after defeat. The revolution itself was seen by many as a lost cause. Washington's resilience wasn't just a matter of physical endurance. It was rooted in a Stoic mindset. Even when his troops were freezing at Valley Forge, morale was low, and political support was waning, Washington remained calm. He understood that the outcome was uncertain, but that his duty was to persist regardless of the difficulties. His famous crossing of the Delaware River wasn't just a bold military maneuver. It was an act of defiance against the odds, embodying the Stoic principle that no matter the external circumstances, one must continue acting according to virtue. Like Marcus Aurelius, Washington accepted that he couldn't control external events. He couldn't control the weather, the strength of the British, or the wavering support of Congress. But what he could control was his resolve, his strategic decisions, and the way he inspired his men to carry on. This is the Stoic virtue of perseverance. He showed the world that resilience doesn't come from having everything in your favor. It comes from the ability to endure hardships while maintaining faith in a greater purpose. Washington's leadership was not based on grand speeches or bravado. It was based on silent strength, the kind of calm, steady resolve that Stoicism celebrates. Finally, there's Nelson Mandela, whose story exemplifies Stoicism in modern times. Mandela wasn't born a Stoic philosopher, but his experiences in life, particularly his 27 years in prison, forced him to embrace many Stoic principles. Imagine being imprisoned, cut off from the world, and having every right to be consumed by anger and resentment. Many would have fallen into despair, but Mandela found strength in patience and inner reflection. He knew he couldn't control his captors, the apartheid system, or his release date. But what he could control was his attitude. Mandela's ability to remain calm, to forgive, and to focus on the future exemplified the Stoic virtue of emotional resilience. Mandela's story reflects another key Stoic teaching, amor fati, the love of fate. Rather than wishing for different circumstances, the Stoic accepts what life brings and makes the best of it. Mandela did not view his imprisonment as a loss, but as a necessary part of his journey toward justice. His endurance during those long years wasn't about survival alone. It was about preparing his mind and spirit to lead South Africa out of apartheid. Just as Marcus Aurelius embraced his challenges and Washington persisted through his own, Mandela became a beacon of hope for an entire nation, proving that inner freedom is far more powerful than external oppression. Although separated by centuries, what binds these leaders together is their stoic ability to remain steady in the face of adversity. They each faced problems beyond their control, plagues, wars, imprisonment, yet they thrived because they understood that true power lies in how we respond to these external events, not in the events themselves. Whether you're facing a difficult decision at work, a personal tragedy, or the chaos of the modern world, you can draw on the same Stoic principles that guided these leaders. It's not the challenges that define us, it's our response. Let's take a moment to explore the Stoic principles that shaped these great leaders. We've seen how they handled crises, but what were the underlying teachings that allowed them to thrive in such difficult circumstances? The Stoic philosophy isn't just for emperors, generals, or revolutionaries. It's a guide for anyone seeking to live a life of meaning, resilience, and purpose. These principles can help us develop the inner strength to face life's challenges, no matter how overwhelming they seem. The dichotomy of control, what you can and can't control. One of the most foundational principles in Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. This simple yet profound idea says that we should focus only on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, and let go of everything else. This concept helped Marcus Aurelius navigate his turbulent reign, allowed Washington to keep his focus on the war effort despite overwhelming odds, and gave Mandela the resilience to endure 27 years in prison. When you internalize this principle, life's obstacles become less intimidating. The things that we cannot control, other people's opinions, external events, even death, are no longer sources of anxiety. The Stoic masters would tell us, don't waste energy worrying about things you can't change. Focus instead on how you respond to those things. In modern life, this means letting go of the desire to control outcomes at work, in relationships, or in politics, and turning your attention inward. Turning obstacles into opportunities. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In Stoicism, obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're the path itself. This mindset shift can transform how we see the challenges in our lives. Rather than seeing adversity as something to avoid, Stoicism teaches us to see it as an opportunity for growth. For example, Marcus Aurelius faced constant threats to his empire, from plague, rebellion, and betrayal. Instead of collapsing under the pressure, he used these challenges to refine his own philosophy. His obstacles became the way for him to develop greater resilience, wisdom, and inner strength. In our daily lives, this principle can apply to anything: a difficult project at work, a strained relationship, or even a personal loss. By viewing these obstacles as chances to grow, we transform setbacks into opportunities for personal evolution. Emotional resilience, steady in the storm. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming a stone-cold person. Rather, it teaches us to build emotional resilience, to remain steady and calm in the face of chaos. For Marcus Aurelius, this meant staying composed despite betrayals and threats to his life. For George Washington, it was leading an army through bitter winters with no guarantee of success. For Nelson Mandela, it was maintaining his dignity and resolve during decades of imprisonment. Emotional resilience is about finding peace within, regardless of external circumstances. It's the ability to remain grounded when life's storms rage around you. This doesn't mean you won't feel pain or disappointment, but Stoicism teaches us how to avoid being overwhelmed by our emotions. Through practices like mindfulness and reflection, we learn to observe our emotions without letting them control us. Amor fati, loving your fate. The Stoic idea of amor fati, the love of fate, teaches us to not only accept whatever life throws at us, but to embrace it fully. This mindset was crucial for figures like Marcus Aurelius and Nelson Mandela, who both endured immense hardship, yet found a way to turn their circumstances into sources of strength. Rather than wishing things were different, Amor fati invites us to see every experience, good or bad, as a part of our unique journey. Mandela's years in prison weren't something he resented or lamented. He viewed them as a necessary part of his path toward leading his country to freedom. By embracing what life gives us, rather than fighting against it, we unlock a deeper sense of peace. In our own lives, Amor fati means accepting the ups and downs of life, the successes and failures, the moments of joy and pain. It's the realization that everything we experience, even the hard times, is an opportunity to grow. The power of inner freedom. Ultimately, what Stoicism teaches us, through the lives of Marcus Aurelius, George Washington, and Nelson Mandela, is the importance of inner freedom. This is the freedom that no one can take away, no matter the external circumstances. It's the ability to live according to your values, to act with integrity, and to remain steadfast in the face of adversity. Marcus Aurelius didn't allow the pressures of ruling an empire to crush his spirit. Washington didn't let the setbacks of the Revolutionary War deter him from his purpose. Mandela didn't let his years of imprisonment embitter him. They all understood that true freedom comes from within, from mastering your own mind, emotions, and actions. And this is the greatest lesson Stoicism offers, that no matter what life throws at you, you always have the power to choose how you respond. In that choice lies true freedom, and that freedom is the key to a meaningful, resilient life. Courage in the face of uncertainty. One theme stands out repeatedly: courage in the face of uncertainty. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire beset by chaos. George Washington led a revolution against one of the most powerful empires, and Nelson Mandela faced a lifetime of struggle for equality. None of them could have known the outcome of their efforts, yet they pressed on. Courage in Stoicism isn't just about fearlessness. It's about acknowledging the unknown and taking action regardless of the outcome. Stoics recognize that uncertainty is part of life, but rather than letting it paralyze them, they choose to move forward anyway. They understood that we can't predict the future, but we can control our present actions. This type of courage applies to modern life, where uncertainty is a constant companion in our careers, relationships, and personal journeys. The key takeaway is, don't fear the fog of the future, because it's in the present where we carve out our destiny. Wisdom and humility. Knowing what you don't know. Another vital Stoic principle is the pursuit of wisdom paired with humility. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the known world, regularly reflected on his own limitations and ignorance. His meditations are filled with reminders that he didn't have all the answers. George Washington, despite his military genius, consulted his generals and political allies, understanding that wisdom was found in counsel. Nelson Mandela, after gaining power, avoided becoming a tyrant by leading with humility and listening to others. Stoicism teaches us that true wisdom comes from understanding how little we know. This humility makes us open to learning, to growth, and to better decision-making. In our own lives, it means cultivating the habit of self-reflection, acknowledging when we don't know the answer, and seeking knowledge rather than pretending to have it all figured out. It is through this humility that we become stronger and more capable leaders, not just in the grand sense, but in our daily interactions. Justice is one of the 4 core virtues of Stoicism, alongside wisdom, courage, and temperance, and it was a guiding principle for the great Stoic leaders of history. For Marcus Aurelius, it meant ruling fairly, even when dealing with treachery and revolt. For George Washington, justice meant leading a nation built on the ideals of liberty and equality, though those ideals were still aspirational at the time. For Nelson Mandela, it meant fighting against an unjust system and seeking reconciliation rather than revenge when he had the power to punish his oppressors. Justice, in the Stoic sense, isn't just about legality. It's about fairness, compassion, and ensuring that your actions benefit the greater good. Stoicism teaches that we should strive to act justly, not because it's easy, but because it's the right thing to do. This principle applies today just as it did centuries ago. Whether you're managing a team, engaging in political activism, or simply interacting with your community, the Stoic concept of justice reminds us to consider the impact of our actions on others and to act in a way that promotes the collective well-being. The power of reflection. Learning from mistakes. One thing that every great leader has in common is the ability to learn from their mistakes. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about his own missteps, reminding himself to do better. George Washington faced numerous failures during his military career, but never let them break his resolve. Nelson Mandela, though a revolutionary, eventually realized that violence would not lead to lasting peace, and instead chose the path of negotiation and forgiveness. Stoicism teaches the value of reflection, not to dwell on the past, but to learn from it. By regularly reflecting on our thoughts, actions, and outcomes, we gain the wisdom to improve. Reflection isn't about self-punishment for mistakes. It's about growth. This is a practice that we can all adopt, taking time at the end of each day to ask ourselves, what went well, what didn't, and how can I improve tomorrow? This habit of daily reflection allows us to grow not just as individuals, but as leaders in our own lives. Fortitude, building inner strength. Over time, fortitude is a cornerstone of Stoic thought, the ability to remain steadfast in the face of challenges. Marcus Aurelius endured constant invasions, betrayals, and personal losses, yet he remained resolute in his duty. George Washington faced insurmountable odds during the Revolutionary War, but his unwavering determination inspired his troops to keep fighting. Nelson Mandela endured years of imprisonment, yet he emerged stronger, not broken by his ordeal. Fortitude isn't something that happens overnight. It's built slowly, through the repeated facing of difficulties. Stoicism teaches us that each hardship is an opportunity to build our resilience, to develop our inner strength. Every time we persevere, we grow stronger, more capable, and more prepared for the next challenge. In today's world, where we often expect quick fixes and easy solutions, the Stoic emphasis on fortitude reminds us that true strength is cultivated over time and through consistent effort. Leading by example. The Stoic way. The greatest leaders, whether Stoics or not, led by example. Marcus Aurelius didn't just preach Stoic virtues, he lived them. George Washington refused to seize more power when he could have become a king, choosing instead to step down after 2 terms, a move that set a precedent for future leaders. Nelson Mandela chose forgiveness over vengeance, showing the world that reconciliation was possible even after decades of injustice. Stoicism teaches that actions speak louder than words. A true Stoic leader doesn't need to boast or seek recognition. They simply do what is right and let their actions inspire others. This type of leadership, grounded in integrity and humility, is what we should all strive for. Whether you're leading a team, a family, or just your own life, remember that it's your actions, not your words, that will define your character. The lasting legacy of Stoic leadership. What makes the teachings of Stoicism and the lives of leaders like Marcus Aurelius, George Washington, and Nelson Mandela so relevant today is their lasting legacy. They demonstrated that through wisdom, courage, justice, and fortitude, anyone can leave a mark on the world. They weren't perfect, but they strived to live according to principles that transcended their personal desires. Their legacy wasn't built on power alone, but on the impact they had on those they served. Today, we have the opportunity to continue that legacy. Whether it's in how we lead our own lives or how we influence others, the Stoic approach remains a powerful guide. The question we must all ask ourselves is, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? As we reach the pinnacle of our exploration, one thing becomes strikingly clear. The power of Stoicism doesn't lie in grand gestures or public acclaim. It lies in the quiet, daily practice of self-mastery and inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, George Washington, and Nelson Mandela all embodied this truth. Greatness is not achieved by dominance or power, but by the discipline of the mind, the resilience of spirit, and the commitment to doing what is right, even when no one is watching. This is the Stoic way, leading without needing to be seen, enduring without seeking sympathy, and acting justly without waiting for recognition. The key moment for us today is to realize that Stoicism is not a distant philosophy for ancient rulers. It's a practical guide for anyone seeking to live a life of purpose, no matter the circumstances. The great leaders from history serve as our examples, but the practice begins within each of us. The question that remains is, how can you cultivate that inner freedom, that calm in the storm, in your life today? In the heart of the storm, the ship's course is determined not by the waves but by the captain's resolve. This metaphor illustrates the Stoic mindset. No matter how fierce the external forces, whether it's war, persecution, or personal hardship, what truly matters is the inner strength, the unshakable core within each of us. Leaders like Marcus Aurelius and Mandela weren't immune to pain or conflict. What set them apart was their ability to navigate the chaos with clarity, rooted in Stoic principles. Aurelius, while facing military campaigns and political betrayal, would remind himself daily through his writings and meditations that his mind was his fortress. Similarly, Nelson Mandela, while imprisoned for 27 years, held on to his mental freedom, resisting bitterness and focusing on what he could control, his own thoughts and reactions. This is the lesson of the great leaders. The world will always throw storms our way, but it is our internal compass, grounded in Stoic philosophy, that steers us through. Stoicism teaches us to separate what is within our control from what is not, and it is this principle that grants us the ultimate freedom. The Stoics knew that every obstacle is an opportunity. Marcus Aurelius saw each hardship as a tool to refine his character. George Washington, too, understood that enduring the cold, brutal winters of war with his soldiers wasn't just a trial, it was a testament to the values he sought to embody. For these leaders, every difficulty became a stepping stone towards greatness. And this is where we find our climax. The realization that our greatest moments of growth come not in ease, but in struggle. The harder the challenge, the greater the opportunity to cultivate virtue. So how does this translate to your life? The storms you face, the hardships that seem insurmountable, these are your proving grounds. It's in these moments where your strength is tested and where Stoicism offers a pathway to unshakable resilience. Great leaders didn't become legends through perfect conditions. They thrived in adversity. And so can you. In this climax of understanding, we stand at the intersection of history and personal growth. The legacies of those who came before us remind us that Stoicism isn't about eliminating hardship, but mastering our response to it. The next time you encounter a challenge, big or small, remember the lessons of these great leaders. Let the storm rage on, but remain the captain of your soul. Throughout history, the greatest leaders have all shared one common thread: an unwavering commitment to Stoic principles in the face of overwhelming challenges. These individuals weren't born into greatness, nor were they immune to fear, pain, or failure. They were human, like you and me. But what set them apart was their ability to harness the power of their mind, their ability to navigate life's storms with an inner calm and clarity. From Marcus Aurelius in ancient Rome to Nelson Mandela in modern times, the lessons of Stoicism remain timeless. We do not control the external world, but we have absolute control over how we react to it. These leaders found freedom not in their external circumstances, but within themselves. They focused on what they could control: their thoughts, their actions, their attitudes, and let go of the rest. So, what can we take from these great leaders? The art of letting go, the ability to endure hardship with grace, and the wisdom to recognize what is truly within our control. By adopting this mindset, we not only free ourselves from unnecessary suffering, but we also gain the strength to influence the world around us, just as they did. Remember, Stoicism is not a philosophy of passivity. It's not about accepting everything that comes your way without action. It's about mindful action, choosing when to engage, when to step back, and how to navigate life's complexities with the calm, reasoned judgment that Stoicism teaches. By mastering this mindset, we can become not only better leaders but better individuals, contributing positively to our families, communities, and the world. Let us carry forward the lessons of history, drawing from the strength and wisdom of those who came before us. Whether you're facing your own challenges or seeking to lead others, the Stoic path is always available to you, guiding you towards inner freedom and resilience. As we've learned from the great leaders of history, embracing Stoic principles can transform not only how we perceive challenges, but how we respond to them. By learning to control our inner world, we become better equipped to face anything life throws our way. If you found value in this video, now is the time to apply these principles in your life. Start small, perhaps with a daily practice of journaling or reflecting on the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself each day, what is within my control and what must I let go of? Take action now by subscribing to this channel for more insights into Stoicism, leadership, and living a life of purpose. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below sharing what historical leader or Stoic principle resonates most with you. Let's start a conversation, share wisdom, and continue to learn together. Don't forget to share this video with others who could benefit from these timeless lessons. As the Stoics believed, by improving ourselves, we improve the world around us.